Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premananda, Hari Bo. Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Jai. So, we're in the second canto, the second chapter, and text 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Actually, the second canto, third chapter, text 15. Sa Vai Bhagavato Raja Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharata Bala Kridanakai Kridan Bala Kridanakai Kridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade Krishna Kridam Ya Adade Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharata Bala Kridanakai Kridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandevayo Maharata Bala Kridanakai Kridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade Savai Bhagavato Raja
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Pandevo Yo Maharata Bala Kridanakai Kridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade.
Krishna Kridaya Adade.
Okay then.
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Pandaveyo Maharita
Pandevo Maharata
Bala Kridana Kai Kridam Krishna Kridam Ya Adade.
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Pandaveyo Maharataha
Pandaveyo Maharataha
Bala Kridana Kai Kridan
Bala Kridana Kai Kridam
Krishna Kridam Yadade
Krishna Kridam Ya Adade.
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Savai Bhagavato Raja
Pandaveyo Maharataha
Pandaveyo Maharata
Bala Kridana Kai Kridan
Bala Kridana Kai Kridam
Krishna Kridam Yadade
Krishna
Kridam Ya Adade. So, the word for word is Sa
Sa
He Vai
Vai
Certainly
Bhagavata
Bhagavata, a great devotee of the Lord.
a great devotee of the Lord.
Raja,
Raja
Maharaj Parikit.
Maharaj Cricket
Pandaveya,
Andaleya
grandson of the Pandavas.
grandson of the Pandavas.
Maharata,
Maharata
a great fighter.
a great fighter.
Bala,
Bala
while a child.
while a child.
Kridanakai,
Kridanakai
with play toys,
With
with play
play-
dolls.
with play dolls.
Kridan,
Kridan
playing.
playing.
Krishna,
Krishna
Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna.
Kridam,
Freedom
activities.
activities.
Ya,
Yahoo
the day
of the day
accepted.
accepted.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Oh, I didn't read the verse yet, sorry. So, Maharaj Parikit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from his very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deity. So, please repeat. Maharaj Parikit,
Maharaj Parikit,
the grandson of the Pandavas,
grandson of
was from his very childhood
a
a great devotee of the Lord.
great devotee of the Lord.
Even while playing with dolls,
Even while playing with dolls,
he used to worship Lord Krishna
he used to worship Lord Krishna
by imitating
by imitating
the worship of the family deity.
the worship of the family deity.
Now, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 41, it is stated that even a person who has failed in the proper discharge of yoga practice is given a chance to take birth in the house of devout brahmanas or in the house of rich men like Kshatriya kings or rich merchants. But Maharaj Parikit was more than that, because he had been a great devotee of the Lord since his previous birth, and as such he took his birth in an imperial family of the Kurus, and especially that of the Pandavas. So from the very beginning of his childhood, he had the chance to know intimately the devotional service of Lord Krishna in his own family. The Pandavas, all being devotees of the Lord, certainly venerated family deities in the royal palace for worship. Children who appear in such families fortunately generally imitate such worship of the deities, even in the way of childhood play. By the grace of Lord Sri Krishna, we have the chance of being born in a Vaishnava family. And in our childhood, we imitated the worship of Lord Krishna by imitating our Father. Our Father encouraged us in all respects to observe all functions such as the Rath Yatra and the Doli Yatra ceremonies. And he used to spend money liberally for distributing prasadi to us children and our friends. Our spiritual master, who also took his birth in a Vaishnava family, got all inspirations from his great Vaishnava father, Thakur Bhaktivinoda. That is the way of all lucky Vaishnava families. The celebrated Mirabai was a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna as the great lifter of Govardhan Hill. What?
Why is that in there?
I don't know. But I did some research. It was hard to find anything about her, but I did find something I'll tell you later. The life history of many such devotees is almost the same because there is always symmetry between the early lives of all great devotees of the Lord. According to Jiva Goswami, Maharaj Pariksit must have heard about the childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna at Vrindavan, for he used to imitate the pastimes with his young playmates. According to Sridhar Swami, Maharaj Pariksit used to imitate the worship of the family deity by elderly members. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also confirms the viewpoint of Jiva Goswami. So accepting either of them, Maharaj Pariksit was naturally inclined to Lord Krishna from his very childhood. He might have imitated either of the above-mentioned activities, and all of them established his great devotion from his very childhood, a symptom of the Mahabhagavat. Such Mahabhagavats are called Nityasiddhas, or souls liberated from birth. But there are also others who may be liberated from birth, but who develop a tendency for devotional service by association, and they are called sadhanasiddhas. There is no difference between the two in the ultimate issue. And so the conclusion is that everyone can become a sadhanasiddha, a devotee of the Lord, simply by the association with the pure devotees. The concrete example is our great spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni. In his previous life, he was simply a boy of a maidservant, but through association with great devotees, he became a devotee of the Lord of his own standard, unique in the history of devotional service. So the verse again is, Maharaj Pariksit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from his very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deities. So, I forgot to say, Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Sarasatim Vyasam Tatam Jayam. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, we should first offer our respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supreme human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachandani Visesha Sunyavadi Paskatari Sato. So, Prabhupada mentioned 641 from the Bhagavad Gita. And actually there's a few verses in it. It starts with 640. Actually, sometimes, like in 1966, it's a very nice class, and he includes like 4 of these verses. He says, Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. And this is in response to Arjuna's question, what happens to someone who gives up his material responsibilities and takes to the spiritual path? He's now burnt his bridges in the material world, but he hasn't been successful in the spiritual world, and these are Krishna's reply to that. This is the one that's mentioned in the purple, text 41. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. I think this is the one that has the purport that has something really interesting. Yeah, I want to read this purport. It's really, I don't recall ever seeing this before. The unsuccessful yogis are divided into two classes. One is fallen after very little progress, and one is fallen after long practice of yoga. The yogi who falls after a short period of practice goes to the higher planets, where pious living entities are allowed to enter. After prolonged life there, one is sent back again to this planet to take birth in the family of a righteous Brahmana Vaishnava or of aristocratic merchants. The real purpose of yoga practice is to achieve the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, as explained in the last verse of this chapter. But those who do not persevere to such an extent and who fail because of material allurements are allowed, by the grace of the Lord, to make full utilization of their material propensities. And after that, they are given opportunities to live prosperous lives in righteous or aristocratic families. Those who are born in such families may take advantage of the facilities and try to elevate themselves to full Krishna consciousness. So I think it was in the class itself that I heard about this, where Prabhupada indicated there's a distinction between someone who's only achieved a little bit of success in yoga and then fell down. And that individual, their destination is that they take birth on the heavenly planets and live amongst the pious living entities there. Then they come back to earth. Then they take birth in an aristocratic family, or in a family of Brahmins, or even better, they take birth in a family of Vaishnavas. But if someone has made some substantial advancement in yoga and has come close to the point of success and then falls down, they take birth, their next birth, in a family, again, either of an aristocracy or in a family of Brahmanas or in a Vaishnava family. So there's a distinction between someone who's done a little bit and someone who's done a lot. And either way, there is no loss. It's all good. You know, you can't, how can you, where's the problem? Even if I just did a little. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to comment.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
In the early 80s, I was doing Food for Life in Miami, and at the time, the big worldwide guy was Kundaran. So I'm riding down with him we're going to do the thing. And I was saying, like, I guess a lot of the devotees ain't going to go back to God at this time. He says, Prabhupada says, all of them.
All of us would. Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying like this life. I asked him, I says, I guess a lot of devotees ain't going to go back to God at this life. He said, Prabhupada said a lot. That's what he said, so.
Yeah. But here it's saying, probably, and in the class that I heard in 1966 in New York, he said, well, first of all, he said that when he read that verse, he said, and that means all of you boys, because obviously it was early on, so maybe Jalarani hadn't even showed up yet, because in the beginning it was just young men that were coming. And he said, all of you boys, this indicates that you are all fallen from the past, and that's why you immediately have come and taken an interest. You find nothing in this material world that is giving you any pleasure. So now you're looking for something substantial, and that's why Krishna has sent you here. Something to that effect. And then he says that the point is that if you don't succeed and you've just done a small amount of service or just had some Agyata Sukriti, then you can go to the heavenly planets for a while and then come back to Earth and pick up from that point on. If you were at 1%, you start at 2%. But then if someone else has done, like, say, 35%, they pick up at 36% on the Earth planet from that point on. So there really isn't any downside to taking to Krishna consciousness. None. Or distributing prasadam, or getting someone to mock you when you're on Harinam, making fun of the, hey, Hare Krishna! Like there's a story where Prabhupada had been interviewed in Australia by this reporter, and the devotee that had been with Prabhupada when the interview was going on, when he saw the article, he was really depressed because the guy didn't get it at all. And when he told Prabhupada that it wasn't a very good article, it's like he didn't understand you. And then he said, well, does he say Hare Krishna? Does he mention Krishna at all? He said, yes. And then he says, well, how many times? And he counts, I think it was 7. And they said, well, how many papers do they sell? About 100,000. So that means 700,000 times people have chanted. That's not, that's nothing to, that's a pretty good success. So that's the way Prabhupada looked at it, and apparently that's the way Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada used to look at it as well. So, but the other point is that Prabhupada also used to talk about his life when he was a child, and how at night, he would hear the bells, the ringing of the bells. It would go ding, 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 ding. And it was his father worshiping their family deities. And so he asked his father if he could have some deities to worship, and his father brought him small Radha Krishna deities. And then he would imitate his father and worship Radha and Krishna. And then he heard about Rath Yatra, and he said he would lay awake at night, dreaming. One of the demigods just came in, I think. Vine? So, Barbara looked like So, he would lay awake at night making plans for his Rath Yatra. And when his father said he couldn't afford a new Rath Yatra cart, a Bengali woman overheard this, and she sold the family at a reasonable price her Ratha cart. And then he organized the whole neighborhood, not his relatives, and there was like an extended family there, and across the street there was a family temple that they all would worship at. And it's there in the following Prabhupada DVD by Yadavar. You see a picture, you see a scene where Prabhupada's there with some of his relatives and some of his early disciples. They have like neon lights, those little lights that they have in India a lot. And Prabhupada just looks so happy to be there. And so that was his life. And so, it was an 8-day Rath Yatra festival. And he distributed prasadam. He said his father was we weren't wealthy, but he was very, very liberal in prasadam distribution. And he would do Rath Yatra and Doli Yatra. So this was Prabhupada's childhood, and he says that, that was, his inspiration was his father. And then, when there was plans for him to go to London, all the arrangements were made for him to go to London and study to become a barrister, to become a lawyer. His mother really was pushing for it, and his father said, absolutely not. My son will not go and associate with these people. And he was stressing, his mother thought it was a complete waste of time, but his father stressed that he have Madanga classes and harmonium classes. He didn't care about the ABCD, Prabhupada said. He cared about whether or not he learned how to play Madanga, and he learned how to play harmonium. When Prabhupada was in Atlanta, when that time he was teaching us how to sing Parama Karuna to a 1-2 beat, nobody could do it, and so he had them play the tape back of him singing, and then he asked for a madanga, and none of the madangas were suitable. So finally he just took one madanga and he tuned it right there in front of us. He just kept working it like this, like that, so that it would sound nice. And then he played that beat to himself singing. So afterwards, when they were walking back to his quarters, Sudakirti said to him, Prabhupada, everybody was amazed at how expert you are in playing the mridanga. And Prabhupada said, well, I've been playing for 80 years. You think by now, maybe I know. So that was the move. It was really... and then this Mirabai that Prabhupada mentions in the purport, apparently the only place I could find any quote was in the Vanapedia, and just the one quote they had was the quote from this purport. But then I dug deeper, and I found a conversation between Allen Ginsberg and Prabhupada. And Allen Ginsberg must have known about Mirabai. She's an Indian poet, and she was a contemporary of Lord Chaitanya. And Allen Ginsberg was asking Prabhupada about her, because she wrote beautiful poetry about Krishna and the lifting of Govardhan Hill. And Prabhupada said that she saw Rupa Goswami, but she never had any association with Lord Chaitanya. But she realized that Lord Chaitanya was Krishna. And she was a great Vaishnava poet. And that's all I know about it. But she, from childhood, that was the point. The reference was other examples of other Vaishnavas who, from their childhood, were influenced by their family to become devotees. So that's the one advantage, and for a child to be born in a family of devotees. And so there's different... I've been meditating on this a lot lately, but there's no disgrace if someone makes a mistake on this path. If there's a slip, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. That's from Shakespeare. When you go to drink, sometimes you slip and it spills. So, and also Prabhupada used to quote the expression, there's many an accident on the royal road. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And also, failure is the pillar to success. If you make a mistake, there was a famous letter that Prabhupada wrote to one of his senior men who had done a lot of very important service with Prabhupada. And he had taken sannyas, but then he found it too difficult. His wife, as soon as he took sannyas, even though she had agreed, she had a lot of problems. And he was always in anxiety about her. And I was actually traveling with him at the time. And he was getting messages, and one time I met her and talked with her. She was a very nice devotee, but she was so upset by losing her husband. She didn't realize how hard it was going to be. And so he went to Prabhupada and asked, he said, I'm going to ask Prabhupada if I can change my colors. Prabhupada didn't think it was funny. So he eventually did go back to take care of his wife. And then Prabhupada wrote a very nice letter saying, so technically this is a fall down. But from this point, you can now preach even more enthusiastically. And you can teach other people from what you have learned from this. And then he quoted, failure is the pillar to success. And so someone makes a mistake, that the main thing is for everyone else to be supportive and not to make them feel, worse than they probably already do. But the question is whether or not they understand they made a mistake. That's the real issue. If they don't have that understanding, but if they do, then there's hope. And we should pray for that. And Vishwamitra, he meditated for, I've heard 10,000, I've heard 60,000 years. This is a very powerful transcendentalist. And he was attracted by a dancing girl. Menaka. Right. And Indra had sent her because he was envious of Vishwamitra, that maybe he might get too powerful. Vishwamitra, sorry. Vishwamitra. Rita. Like lovely Rita. Vishwamitra. And the story about him is that he actually was the emperor of the world. He was a powerful king and had been defeated by Vashishta, who was the most powerful transcendentalist or guru at the time. And he realized then, he destroyed his entire army, Vishwamrita's army. And he realized then that the mode of goodness is more powerful than the mode of passion.
It's Vishwamitra. Just kidding. Vishwamitra.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Vishwamitra?
Yeah, I don't think it's Amrita.
I thought it was Vishwamitra.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So, I'm not even going to say his name anymore. Anyway, this devotee, he had a problem. He got attracted. So after that happened, he started over. That's the point. Colleen likes to quote this. It's something I think from Catholicism, is that a saint is a sinner who gets up. It's a very good little proverb or whatever, little saying, if you think about it. Because who hasn't made mistakes? And even you may think, well, I'm doing real good right now, and blah, blah, blah. You never know what's going to happen down the road. Mine is very clever. And this whole life is meant for preparing ourselves for, in this case, we're talking about Parikshit Maharaj, okay? So this is how I'm going to wind this up. I don't want to prolong the issue. That Parikshit Maharaj knows he's about to die, but we're now talking about his childhood. So from his childhood, because he was a member of the Pandava family, he saw his elders going to the temple and seeing the beautiful worship of the deities. So he was attracted to that. He understood. He's looking for Krishna. He had seen Krishna while in the womb. And it indicates there, and I'd really like to find out where this information might be. Prabhupada says that from his past life, he had a past life before being born into the Pandavas family that caused him to, he was a very successful devotee or transcendentalist or yogi and took birth in the Pandavas family. And so it's a continuation. Prabhupada also mentions Narada Muni here. Narada Muni was actually, before his birth as the son of a maidservant, and serving the Bhaktivedantas and hearing them and taking their prasadam, and then becoming an orphan because his mother was bit by a snake while milking a cow. He was a Gandharva, a very well-known singer, maybe the best singer in the heavenly realm. And he had come to a big festival, and he sang some songs that weren't glorification of Krishna. They may have been glorification of a demigod, or maybe just some other type of song. But the great sages there were offended and they cursed him, but it was a blessing. And he ends up being Narada Muni. So, these things are like blessings in disguise. So, in the beginning of our lives, even if you now make a mistake and we don't succeed in this life, there is no loss. We are going to get a chance to do this and get it right. We are all going back home, back to God. Confirmed. Write it down, note it down, let it be done, let it be said that we are all going back to Godhead. Ki Jai! Haribol!
Only this exclusive few.
Yeah, just us.
Nobody else.
Yeah. We're not. Yeah.
I don't know.
No. Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know.
It had to be here at this moment,
Yes. Thank God I almost didn't make it. I was so tired.
Me too. I dragged my way here. So, but then no. So it's serious. I mean, so it's like you start from the beginning, but at the end, you have to prepare for the end. And fortunately, he knew when his end was coming. He knew he had 7 days. So that's what this is all about. But we can't lose. We can't lose. There's no reason. You get depressed. Oh, I can't believe it. This is so embarrassing. What? Oh no, and you're depressed. But in the end, when you think about it, this path, this is just the mercy, the most munificent incarnation. Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gurdavashe Namaha. Lord Chaitanya is the most munificent incarnation. He's distributing the highest level of love of Godhead, and you can't fail. It's not possible. And even if you temporarily, and you haven't only done a little, you just get to go to heaven for a while, and then you come back and start it over again. It's not such a bad thing.
In a great family.
In a great family, that's right. So, well, yeah, but maybe but sometimes time. It may seem like a long time now, but like Narada Muni had to wait a very long time before it became, according to our estimation, he had to wait because he realized the Lord just at the time of annihilation. And so he had to go back within the Mahavishnu and then come back out and become Narada Muni. So, yeah, it may not be till the next day of Brahma. But you still, that's what we're talking about is eternity here. And it's all in Krishna's time. There's no anxiety here. Yes, Mara?
A couple of things you said. One, you said from heavenly planets you have to come back. I have also heard that from heavenly planets you can go up, but it's harder.
Yeah, it is.
It's harder.
But you can. It's possible. You can go from the heavenly planets. Then there's I think there's Marloka, Tapoloka, Janaloka, Satyaloka, something like that. And then Satyaloka, you can go straight from there.
My second one is that you said about Narada Muni, that he was the singer.
Yeah.
And the best singer of the heavenly planet.
Yeah.
It's described in the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's 10:22-23, I'm not sure. His name is Chitrangada or Chitranagar.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's his name.
Yeah.
Right, Mother Priya?
Yeah, I don't know if it was him. Was it him? Same.
I don't know. It says that there's only one
I'm
name.
not sure, but there is reference even in the Bhagavatam in the 6th canto about
It
that.
says that his name is Chitranagar. That's this very, very good singer. It's only one name is mentioned there. I wonder that could be.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
anyway, we are well situated, and we should feel very secure and very blessed and very fortunate, but very humble. Because why? Why we have been given, we few have been given such mercy. And it says, in Kali Yuga, only those who are endowed with sufficient intelligence can understand this movement. So, but even if they don't understand it, if you get them to say Krishna, if you get them to take prasadam or get a book or some way, they're going to benefit. There isn't going to be any loss. It's all mercy. Everything about this movement is pure mercy. It's the highest form of charity, the highest form of philanthropy that you can do. The best thing in your life that you could do is this. Even if you're just doing something which you may think is insignificant, it's significant. Right?
Vivo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
I made it through. Hare Krishna. Any more questions or comments? Yes?
And it's so merciful that even if someone isn't up to the standard,
Yeah.
to go back to back to Godhead on his own, if at the time of death, devotees are around,
That's right.
chanting to them,
Right.
they can go back to God just by that.
And even it says that even if you somehow or other, like, sometimes all of a sudden just, I don't even know where it comes from, or these things just bubble up in my mind. I think of some ridiculous thing from high school or something. Prabhupada said, and Beer Krishna was mentioning this in his trail, that Krishna will come and remind you.
That was there.
Krishna will come and remind you. Or Prabhupada will show up and remind you. So many devotees now, we hear these stories of devotees that have, sort of fallen away, and people are around them, and they're saying, you came for me. They're saying this at the time of their death. I was told that Rama Kali was,
I was going to say that.
he was saying that Bhakti Vinod was sitting in the
Yeah.
room. So, whatever happens, because even like Ajamil, we all know the story that he said Narayan, right? But he didn't go directly back to God. He had to take birth one more time and then finish. It's there in the 7th canto, I think it is, or 6th canto. I can't
Did he take birth in the material world, or did he go on the roadshow?
I thought he like didn't have to die right then, but he could go and meditate and become pure. That's what I was taught.
No, he had to, live a life and practice. But he was, extremely inspired. I have a feeling that he was blessed with memory. Like, look, Bharat Maharaj. How could you be? This is Bharat Maharaj, the emperor of the world. He gave up everything, and then he got attached to a little baby deer. Let me tell you something. I used to think that seemed a little, like a stretch, like they're overstating it. But I saw a little baby fawn, are they called fawn? And standing next to his or her mother, who had just been hit by a car, and it broke my heart. I mean, this thing, I was driving from Alachua to St. Augustine. After I had left here, I had a place in St. Augustine. I was coming back from a program in Alachua, and right there on the side of the road, I saw the mother dead, and this absolutely beautiful, just fragile little, Bambi, just standing there. And I wanted to stop and save it. Well, how? I mean, didn't Juanita used to have a little, was it Juanita or the people before, Vamana Dave?
We used to have one here.
Used to
Yeah,
have
we
one
had
here?
one here.
Well, there was one over there at Vamanas, I think, too. We had one here, really.
Yeah.
Didn't last too long.
One of them, no, it lasted a long time.
Yeah, but he left, I think, maybe 4 or 5 months. No, it didn't stay for
It
that long.
stayed, yes, it did. She stayed till she was big and roaming with the cows.
Really?
Anyways, they
I
got-
remember that.
Yeah, one of the boys ran and caught the fawn. They shouldn't have, but they did. They captured it, and then they kept it around, and then they had it in a small cage for a while, and the animal control people said, no, you can't do that. And so then they just let it out with the cows, and she stayed in the cow yard
Wow.
for a long time. People would drive down the road and stop just to
Wow.
look at the cow, but probably when she got older and went into heat, then she left.
But had the mother died?
No, they just caught.
Oh. Anyway, but those are the examples of the really great souls and then he has to take birth as a deer himself, but he knows who he is, and then he takes birth as Jad Bharat. So, and that's a fascinating story. So, you never know. I mean, but our situation is, those were in previous ages. We're in the real mercy mission period here. This is a portal back to Godhead that is unlike any other And it only happens during one portion of the day of Brahma, once in the day of Brahma. And we happen to be in it. So, whenever you start to think, oh, this or that, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough of that, this or that, just stop and
Count your blessings.
yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, remember,
The Sankirtan. This is the man that brought Sankirtan back.
Haribo.
so anyway, whenever you're around the devotee kids, I'm always like thinking, these guys always have a lot of good qualities, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
These
yeah.
devotee kids. So I'm always thinking, a lot of these guys probably like came down from the heavenly planets or something, They
Yeah.
devotee kids, they have like all nice qualities, It's like, it's hard to find one today, so I'm always
Yeah, I sort of. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that. But yeah,
What do you got?
I have a son.
Oh.
He was amazing. He still is amazing, but not the way I want. But he's still amazing. Kaivalya's son, Hare Krishna. Yeah, and yeah. So, yeah, we were very fortunate. We were very, very fortunate. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. Jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Any more? Namo Vishnu.